Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Band? I am Jeffrey Paul. I am not coming from a studio. I am not coming from my home tonight. You've seen me do this from an airport, and now I'm in my car. I had to take my son back to college in Connecticut, and so this is what we do. Thank God for Zoom, and thank God for my co-host. Let's bring him in. Sean Morton, how are you, buddy?
I'm wonderful. I'm actually like a professional podcaster. I'm in my podcast studio, not a Mercedes right now. So, I'm doing good.
Well, listen, if you're going to do a show from a car, you might as well do it from Mercedes.
That is true.
Yes. But speaking of Mercedes and listen, I'm going to panda. I'm going to be like Mike. I'm going to panda. Speaking of greatness, I'm very excited to introduce our guest this week. This guy, he is an original member of the band Slaughter. He is toured with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, was a part of Blue Man Group, and could be seen in the movie Rockstar, which I've watched a million times. I'm very happy to introduce Blas Elias. Blas, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me here. So speaking of Mercedes, I have a Mercedes. It's an old one, though. I've got a 62 190 SL convertible, which is...
Oh, nice. Where do you live?
In Henderson, outside Las Vegas.
Nice.
Oh, that's a perfect place to have a Mercedes convertible, as opposed to living in stupid New York or New Jersey, where it's always cold, raining, and snowing. So yeah, you made the right choice.
It's a good thing. It's about 4 o'clock. It's about 4 o'clock there. It's only like 119 degrees outside, so I understand why he's inside doing a podcast at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, actually, we've been having some rain the past. I mean, we haven't. I think we went probably the longest we went without rain here ever. Recorded the hottest temperatures in Vegas ever this year. A few weeks ago. But lately, we've had rain, like massive thunderstorms and flooding and stuff. So it's a bit of it's a nice break. Although we lost some trees in the area.
Yeah, but, you also lost in the AHL too. We're not going to talk about that.
No, I know. And our guy Fleury, they traded Fleury. Everybody's pretty upset.
Yeah.
Everybody's pretty upset. We traded Fleury. And apparently he didn't even know. He found out, I think, through like Twitter or something or on the news. Apparently he didn't even know they were trading him. It was
That's amazing.
Are you a big fan of the Golden Knights?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was never a fan of hockey before, but when we got the team here, it was at a time. It was right after the October 1st shooting here a few years ago, and so the first year that we're here was that was the year after that happened, and so it was really good for Vegas to have something to get behind. So I think people got really emotionally attached to the team, and really it helped healing, I think, the city. I think that's part of the reason people were so sad he's leaving, because it was he'd been there from the beginning, and it was just kind of like it was, like I said, it was something that helped the city heal, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this before, but you resemble Sebastian Bach. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Sebastian's brother a former pro hockey player, goalie as well?
I don't know. I mean, he's Canadian, so I wouldn't doubt it. But it's funny. I've heard that many times, and as a matter of fact, I told Sebastian the story not too long ago, because we did a gig a few years ago together. I forgot what I was buying. I was trying to buy something. It was right when I first joined Slaughter. I didn't have a driver's license in California. I just moved out there. And so I was trying to buy something, like something electronics at like Best Buy. And they wouldn't approve me to buy it because I didn't have like a proper ID in California or something. And so this one of the managers comes back and he says, "Hey man, don't worry. Let this guy, give him whatever he wants. I know who he is. He's don't worry, he's good for it, So let me buy the thing. And then he tells the guy, don't you know who that is? That's Sebastian Bach, man. It's a Saber Skinner.
That's great.
So, but I get that quite a bit, and we've joked about it. I told him I owe him dinner next time I see him for that.
Well, it could be worse. They could tell you look like either me or Sean. So, but let me ask you something though. How did you get started? How did Slaughter get started?
It was kind of out of the ashes of the Vinnie Vincent invasion, who, if you don't know who Vinnie Vincent is, he was the guitar player for Kiss after Ace Frehley He kind of was part of their resurgence, their comeback. He wrote "Lick It Up," which was their first big hit coming back. So he was a big part of that. And he's a great songwriter, super talented guitar player. And so when he left Kiss, I mean, it was under not great circumstances. I mean, they had a pretty bad falling out. Apparently, it's kind of hard to work with. I don't know if you've heard any stories about him.
I've read that a million different places.
Yeah. So he started his own band, and Dana and Mark. Well, Dana was in it from the beginning, producing and playing bass, and they recorded the first record with Robert Fleischman, who had sang with Journey for a brief stint. And but he didn't want to tour and continue with the band. So Dana had always known about Mark, from doing some sessions with the band. God, what were they called? I forgot. But he knew of Mark and how good of a singer he was. So he suggested Mark. So Mark came in, took over, and did this, the first tour and the second record with him. So they had, a pretty good run. They opened up for Iron Maiden, and again, Vinny being, from what I understand, I've never really worked with him, but difficult for them. They left the band and formed their own band. And so Mark had a leaving member option with Chrysalis, who was Vinny's record label. And they picked up his option. And so he started recording demos. And I heard about the gig through a friend of mine in Houston who was auditioning as a guitar player. And he told me about it. And I knew of them because, number one, I kind of knew who they were, but my friend Bobby Rock, who I went to school with in Houston, was the drummer for
Blas, were you in another band at this time?
I was in a band called Black Sheep. We're like a hard rock kind of, I guess we could compare ourselves to Heart because it was two girls and two guys. It was actually super talented people. The guitar player Marzi, I still talk to. He's super talented guitar player. I've actually been looking forward to maybe doing some more with him. And Linda and Dana were just incredibly talented singer and bass player. Girl played flute. So we had a really good band.
And also, I'm sorry, what year is this?
I want to say this is 87.
Oh, so this is like the height of the metal bands, of bands starting to get signed and everything. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been touring around with them, and then this guitar player I played with in another band in Houston told me about the Mark and Dana putting together a new band, and so I sent out like a tape and a picture, and Mark called me I think the day before they were having auditions and told me to send them a videotape, but I knew if I somehow was going to get that gig that day, so my mom got me a ticket. One-way ticket to California, and I flew out. I left a message, said I'm going to be there, and I was the last guy of the day. And we just clicked. We went through some different songs. They kind of sung things for me to play, and then afterwards, Mark asked me if I wanted to come hang out at their apartment for a while, and I just stayed. And they were already working on demos at that point, so I just kind of was there through the whole writing process and demoing process with them, and going through the process of finding a guitar player. So that's kind of how that kind of got together.
Where was the apartment?
Sherman Oaks, California, in the Valley.
I've been reading a lot of these biographies, and it seemed like everybody was like living in like somewhere downtown Los Angeles by the Troubadour, and that seemed like a crazy time, like to just like be a rocker. And I heard that like you would have like bands like Poison who came from Pennsylvania, yourself who came from Houston, where maybe like you were like the alpha band, the alpha guy there. And then you go to the Sunset Strip and there are like 40,000 rock stars walking around this area. Was that the experience for you as well?
I mean, we a little bit, we visit every now and then, but honestly, we were in the Valley, so we weren't down there, and we were kind of outsiders, I think, to the scene. Me and Mark especially were very like anti-drug and alcohol, so we didn't really get involved in, But Dana was, right? Dana was big on that scene. He had, before, but he's honestly, he's like a super hard worker. Like he produced the record, engineered. So, when he was on tour, he would party, have a good time. But like when he gets into work mode, like he doesn't see anybody, he doesn't go out at all. So we were pretty much locked up. It was, we were in the apartment writing, and then when we got, into the studio, we pretty much lived at the studio. And so we were kind of, isolated from the world. I think that's part of the, we were never really in the scene. I think we were, a little bit, outsiders. We weren't, we weren't wearing super glammed out clothes at the time. We were kind of more just kind of street clothes, and Mark and Dana kind of wanted to get away from the full glam thing because Vinnie Vincent was so over the top. I don't know if you've seen they kind of wanted to go against that. Mark, in that, band, Vinnie wanted him to have this like bleach blonde hair spiked up, and so he decided he was going to let his hair just grow natural and down, and so it was a bit of a departure from that, but we'd visit down there. We'd go to the Rainbow every now and then, hang out. It's cool, seeing all those people, I guess I always felt kind of like an outsider because, when you don't drink and everybody else is drinking or doing drugs, you just feel, it's almost like they think you're a narc, if you're not, and so I don't think people kind of, accepted us into that scene.
I could say for a fact that if I was growing up in that time frame, because like figure 87, 88 was kind of like the big era when like the hair metal pop, really came out. So I was like 11, 12 years old. If I was double that age, 24, I don't think I would have ever made it to 1989. If I lived out there. That's my favorite place in the world. I've said this to Jeff a million times. LA is my favorite place in the world, but just to grow up in that, just to be in that scene, like you don't realize the amount of great music that came out of that era.
Yeah, absolutely.
That area, it's mind blowing. It really is.
Yeah, there was a lot of talented people there, man, and we had people come down, like Jeff Scott So sang on our first demos, and we had Doug Aldrich come in, and I think they tried to get him to play with Slaughter, but he had his own band Lion, I think at the time. But I remember meeting Chuck Wright back then at a rehearsal studio from Quiet Riot. So there was people around. It was cool, just kind of hanging out and seeing people. I remember going down to the Guitar Center and seeing Carlos Cavazos get out of his white Lamborghini. So it's just cool being around all that.
But how does Slaughter wind up? Because you guys are outsiders. Okay, the scene seemed to be going on the Sunset Strip. How do you guys wind up getting a record deal?
Well, it was like I said, it was Vinnie Vincent's record deal that Mark, they had him sign what's called a leaving member option. So they had first rights to sign Mark, after if he were to leave the band. And so he had to submit demos, and so we worked on the demos, and he submitted it, and they decided to pick up his option. So we basically jumped right on to Chrysalis Records, who was the the record company for Vinnie Vincent.
Right.
And part of the thing, they weren't really very supportive, but Mark and Dana knew the business. They'd made a lot of good contacts, in radio and work in the retail stores, so they made contacts with distributors. And so we go visit distributors and record stores and radio stations. So we were very hands-on, like, under, guerrilla marketing, And so I think because they had the experience with Vinnie Vincent, they learned what to do and what not to do, because like Vinnie Vincent was very much, I think a rock star, kind of too good for, people, and Mark and Dana were like willing to shake everybody's hand, and give people the time of day, who worked retail, and who, at the radio stations. And so I think it made a difference. I think just being personally connected to people help, get people behind our record, and also we were very good at, calling fans and just kind of building fan support,
Yeah. Then the point I was going to try to make was like Poison was going more towards like the heavier girls, like the girls who were who may have been left behind, but they were so loyal to the band that they would fill like the rooms and do anything for these guys. And so when record executives would come down and see them, they would see a packed room of all these people, and it got on people's radar.
Yeah, but we had a girl named Michelle Siddiqui we worked with. She had her fan club we called Slaughter International, and she was really good at helping us network with fans, and she organized, us sending out postcards and making phone calls to people, and just, reaching out. And I think, like you said, building relationships with fans, not just the groupies, but fans, and no matter what they look like, whether they're male, female, and I think just, the fact that we did reach out, and we'd have meet and greets every night, for our fan club, no matter how many people were there, we'd spend like hours after the shows meeting people, shaking hands, signing autographs, and I think just, building those relationships helped, to get,
So smart. So smart. So who was the first tour that you guys went out with?
KISS was the first tour. And I think, it may have been partially due to the fact that Gene felt like a kindred spirit in Mark and Dana because of their shared experience with Vinnie Vincent and the difficulties, in those relationships. So Eric Carr actually his girlfriend, Carrie Stevens, was friends with the girl Mark was dating at the time. And so she got our demo to Eric, and Eric played it for Gene and Paul. And they really dug what we're doing and thought, it would, like I said, they wanted to help us, because, they believed in the band, but I think maybe partially because they kind of wanted to get back at Vinny, So they took us on our first tour, Hot in the Shade tour in 1990. And
so Bruce is playing guitar on that one, right?
Bruce Kulick and Eric Carr. Yeah, actually Bruce just moved down the street from me here in Vegas. I don't see him often, since this COVID thing, but I saw him at the airport when he was just moving into his new house. I think it was like a year and a half ago or something. And but yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, it was a great version of that band. I loved that version with Bruce and Eric. Eric's such a good guy.
My favorite too, actually.
Yeah.
So I heard this like rumor a long, long time ago that "Up All Night" was written on the back of a Domino's box. Is that true?
I believe I don't know if Mark still has it, but yeah, I mean, he just write lyrics on whatever was around, and we were just kind of scrounging by whatever we could get. So we had pizza, delivered, and Mark was writing lyrics, after we ate pizza, just happened to write it on the back of a pizza box.
That's funny, man. I used to always again, growing up in the generation that I grew up into, I used to try and mimic a lot of the singers from that era. Almost ruptured a testicle, trying to hit some of Mark's notes. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
he's got pipes, man.
Yeah, he is, just an incredible talent, man. And his vocal range is, just crazy. And, if you listen in the room with him, man, I'd sing background vocals and just so powerful, so loud, like some guys, they can sing like that, but they're kind of quiet. And Mark, he I don't know how many microphones we'd go through. He'd actually blow out the diaphragms of the microphone while he was singing.
Wow, really?
So Blas, how did you make the leap from going to play music to being in Rockstar? And did you always want to be an actor, or was that something that just kind of fell in your lap?
That I would say kind of fell in my lap. It was a girl. It was before the internet, but there was like America Online. They'd have these chat rooms, and this, I was on there, some of these Slaughter chat rooms, in the late 90s. And there's a girl, and I can't remember her name, but she sent me an article about the movie being made based on an article written about Tim Ripper Owens, who sang for Judas Priest. And I remember thinking, this might be kind of interesting, and so I contacted them and got an audition. And I don't think they knew that I wasn't an actor, because I went in for my first audition, and the first audition was playing. So I went and played drums, and the people there were like, wow, you can actually play, because I was doing my whole stick spinning thing, and they said, we got to send you to the director right away. And so I went down to read for the director, and he was like, you aren't really an actor, are you?
Yeah.
So, because I wasn't, very good, but I originally read for Jason Baum's part, which had, an English accent. I just wasn't good at it, but they cast me as Donnie, the younger guy, but
Donnie Johnson.
Donnie Johnson. But then they decided they wanted to have real musicians play the parts in the movie to give it authenticity. And they actually, we hang out, go out for, afterwards, and talk about, our time in the music industry and tell stories to the director, Stephen Herrick. And he used some of those stories in the movie, just to kind of give it a realistic touch. But I think, it helped give the movie kind of an authentic vibe. Because he really did, like I said, he really did spend the time to, listen to our stories. And
We actually have something in common, Blast, too. I mean, since you did that movie with Mark Wahlberg, I was actually in a movie with Mark Wahlberg too. I was actually the stunt double in the last scene of Boogie Nights.
Are you kidding me? Last scene.
I like how for a second there, Blas kind of like believed it. Really? No. Sean he's not length, but he's all girth.
We're fat and thick like a tuna can. That's all I can say.
So, but like I love that movie, and I like it's like you had Blas, but you also had Zach Wilde, who's in the movie. You mentioned Jason Bonham, and Jeff Filson was in the movie as well. What was that like? Any stories about that?
No, I mean, I didn't get to hang out with those guys as much because it was Jeff and Zach were in Steel Dragon, so they filmed a bit separate from us. But I'd see them every now and then, and we just relive some memories. I toured with both those guys. We did No More Tears, No More Tours, tour with Ozzy, and so we got to hang out with Zach. And Tim and Zach were really good friends, and then Jeff Pilson, we did probably a couple of Dokken tours in the '90s, and super talented guy. I saw him with Foreigner not too long ago, and he's just super talented, great singer, in addition to bass player. But it was a good time. But I was with the Blood Pollution Band, which was me and Nick. I can't remember his last name, but and Brian Vander Ark from the Verve Pipe was our band with Mark Wahlberg.
Okay. But you brought up Dokken. How much did Don and George hate each other?
I was there during a few of the arguments, so but it's one of those things. I mean, those guys, they fought, but they had great chemistry,
much like me and Jeffrey Blas.
But I hear that. I think they're going back out together.
Yeah, they are. I know. I just saw that.
So that should be exciting.
That is pretty cool.
Are they playing the States?
I'm not sure. I think so, but
I think it's I think it's the cruise thing, like one of those mega tour like cruise things. I think I saw them on.
Yeah.
Would you guys have you guys done any of those? The hard rock cruises?
I did last year, or was it this last year? Or year before? I did the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yeah, probably the year before. Last year was COVID.
Yeah, well, I did it, with this band Burning Rain. Slaughter was there, but I wasn't playing with him. But me and some of the guys in Slaughter and some of the guys, that I was hanging around with all got super, super sick. And I had all these symptoms of COVID, but my doctor said it couldn't be COVID because it hadn't really gotten to the States yet. And they didn't have any tests for it. So I'm thinking maybe I had it, but, I had all the symptoms of it. But that was a good time, man. I like doing the cruise. I was on this surfing machine like just every day for hours.
Yeah,
one of these surf wave things, and it was a good time. And just being able to see all the bands, like if I wasn't on the surf machine or playing, man, I'm down watching. I got to see King's X there, Winger, Extreme, so good. I mean, Extreme and Nuno and Gary.
Oh my God!
And their drummer, I can't remember the new drummer's name, but God, that guy's fantastic, man. And
because we don't know what Paul Geary's doing, he's managing some band named Godsmack. I never heard of them anyway.
Yeah. But and just seeing this band Heat, which they're kind of a newer, younger band from Sweden, maybe, and this super band. The singer, he left the band, but just an amazing band. If you ever get a chance to check out Heat, it's H.E.A.T. It's a great band, But yeah, it's cool. But just seeing all the bands and just the whole, boat is just all rock and roll. It's cool.
You also, you're a very interesting guy. Also, great shirt, by the way. But you're an interesting guy because you're in this movie. You're in a great band in the 80s, early 90s. How do you make the leap from that to go into, I guess, performance art with Blue Man Group?
Well, yeah, I mean that. It was right. I want to say right around the time I'd finished filming that movie Rockstar, and we had done with Slaughter. We had done a tour, and it was the last tour we did after Tim Kelly had passed away, and things were just it was hard. It was kind of a dark period, I guess you could say, for us,
Sure.
So we had all agreed we're going to take some time off. We talked about we're just going to, take a little break. And during that period, I went to go see. A friend of mine said there was a new show in town called Blue Man Group, and they'd been in New York for a while. It's like street performance in a small theater, but they were putting together like their first big production show in Vegas.
Yeah, they were down in Astor Place, like the Astor Theater.
Astor Theater, yeah, exactly.
Right, doesn't even fit 1,000 people. Very small.
Yeah, so this tiny theater, but now they're going into this mega theater in Vegas, and they were just starting out. And so I went to see the show, and I just fell in love with it. It was just this amazing thing. I didn't even know how to describe it. Especially back then, it was different, than it is now. Now it's still a great show, but it was different. They had like 4 drummers, and it was like a 7-piece band, and the musicians were kind of they had tribal characters, and they jumped and did kind of taiko style drumming. So it was just really cool. And I saw it, and I was just super, super impressed with the show. And it just so happened that they had just done this Intel commercial, the Blue Man Group, and the numbers just started blowing up. And so they needed, more musicians. And so I was just there at the right time. And I asked about auditioning, and they just happened to be looking for another drummer. And so, I joined those guys, and I was with them for 17 years. And
Blue Man Group is 17 years.
I was with them for 17 years, yeah. And it was,
and you paint yourself blue every night.
I wasn't blue. I was one of the band members. So we were like, we had like neon skeleton outfits with like tribal face paint, and we were under black lights. So we looked, kind of animatronic, I guess you could say, but it was analog. And so, I mean, it was really cool, especially, like I said, back in those days, it was a little darker. It had a darker vibe to it, and the band was really, tight, and it was just kind of like, it was a great group of people, so I really enjoyed doing that, and had some, built some good friendships through that, and it allowed me to stay home because I could, like I've been touring since I was a kid, and so I got to go play music and then come home every night. So it allowed me to.
Are you married?
I'm married. I have 2 kids, so it allowed me to build my family, and it was just a good period of my life, And I didn't think I'd ever really get back to playing in, rock bands and touring. And then I got a call from a guy who, Jay Shell, and he played in a band called Hurricane. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys, but
sure, of course.
So he was playing in this production show called Raiding the Rock Vault in Vegas, and so he, was looking for a sub, and so he'd asked me to come in and sub for him when he was, out, doing something. So he was still living in California. So I started kind of getting my feet wet playing, with them. And there was a band called Sin City Sinners I'd, play with every now and then. And they had kind of guests come in and play. And that's how I got to play with Sebastian and some other people. So it's kind of slowly getting my feet wet, playing back into rock. And then out of the blue, I got a message from the Trans-Siberian Orchestra back in.
They reached out to you.
Back in 2016, yeah. And they were looking for another drummer. They have two tours. It's originally Sabotage, and they started really, it basically morphed into Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they kind of split the show in half, because when they do the holiday tours, they couldn't meet the demand with one band, so they basically kind of cut the band in half and add some more musicians for the East and West. And they had a drummer who had been with them for a while, and I guess they were just looking for someone else to come in, and so they contacted me, and at first I thought it was kind of a joke. I was like, this person on like Facebook contacted me, but she was legitimate. And so I went and auditioned and played with the guys and met them, and we just got along great. And I just, I'm a big fan of, Sabotage, and the Hall of the Mountain King and TSO as well. So, it's just been, I love doing those tours and playing with those guys. Great group of people, great tours. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out.
I've seen it multiple times. So I guess the moral of the story is, it seems to happen to you several times, is that you stay online, people message you, and you wind up getting these incredible gigs.
Yeah. Right? Now that you put it that way, yeah, it does happen. Kind of, I feel like sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump just falling into these crazy situations, by accident almost.
Hey, Jeff, I just checked online now. I just got offered a bar gig in Secaucus, New Jersey for $35. Should I take it?
Take it. You got to run your set. That's what we do,
man.
We
work. You never know.
It's true.
Last night I was in Pennsylvania with a comedian named Tommy Gooch, and we did a backyard party, but it's work, it's pay. And, that's what we do as comedians. I guess the same thing is like what musicians do. They pay you enough to come and do a show. You're going to go and do it, right?
Yeah. These days, I kind of, I'm only doing kind of things that I kind of really like doing, there was a period where I was doing, too much, I think, and it's funny now because now, there's hardly any work, but I was doing at one point, I was doing Blue Man Group. I was doing the show called The Tenors of Rock in Vegas, which is another super, super talented bunch of guys, and Raiding the Rock Vault and Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Sin City Sinners all at the same time. It was one period I didn't have a day off for 6 months, and so I've just kind of decided at this point, I got to slow down a little bit because, I'm getting a little up there in age, it's just.
You don't look it, dude. You do not look it. Sean, who is only 23 years old, look at him. He's a disaster. Okay. Look at me. I'm 27 myself.
Yeah,
okay?
and
this is what New York does to you. We got to move out west.
Yeah, Jeff's being driven because they revoked his license for being 78 years old. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking about joining the Senior Olympics this year.
So
actually, I'm eligible, man. 50 plus is eligible for Senior Olympics. I think I'm going to hit it.
That is true. That is very true. But again, I am the young one on the show, but you don't look it. I will give you credit for that. The one thing I loved about the first album, because it had monster fucking hits on that record, but the second album was fantastic, and it didn't get lost in the whole grunge shuffle either. You had some monster songs in that record too.
Yeah, it's not as many people know about that one, and even our third record, which we just are re-releasing on vinyl. It's not us, but it's through a group called Kiss My Wax Records, and they just released I think it's 500 limited edition box sets vinyl of our third record, Fear No Evil, which it's honestly one of my favorites. I don't know if you're familiar with the third record, man. And so they've got this great package they put together. I think there's less than 50 left, but it's a great package. And, hopefully some, maybe new people get to hear, some of those later records we did. Cause there's some really good stuff on there. Even, Back to Reality, the last record we did with Jeff Blandos, killer record, man. I love some of those songs.
Yeah, that came out 99 or 2000, right?
Somewhere around there, yeah. That was the last one we did before I left to do Blue Man Group.
And you're back in the band now, right? Like the guys are all back together?
No. They're out with Will Hunt's playing with them right now. Will's a fantastic drummer. But so they're out touring with Will. I mean, we may at some point, get back to that. We've talked about maybe doing like a tour with basically playing our first record, all the tracks, like I want to say like maybe an anniversary. I don't know if 30 years coming up, but we've talked about doing like basically the tour, just playing the whole first record, which, there's a lot of songs in there we've never even played live, and some good tracks, so hopefully that'll happen at some point, man. 'Cause I love those guys. We still talk. We're great friends, but right now they're out with Will, and I think they found, a lineup that they're happy with, so maybe next year we'll see.
Well, let's go back to Trans-Siberian Orchestra for a second. There's something I wanted to ask you is, one, how long did it take you to kind of like know the songs, to learn all the songs? And then secondly, you guys would be playing 2 shows a night. How would you feel physically doing that?
I mean, that physically, that's, it's an incredibly hard show to play because the shows are 2.5 hours, and right. Like you said, we do 8 shows a week on average. So it's, 2 shows a night for 3 of the weeks, for 3 of the nights. And some of those songs are, like the first half is not as intense because it's if you've seen like the first half's kind of the Christmas story, but in the second half is more of the rock stuff and some of the.
It's all the hits. It's the Carol of the Bells. It's Wizards of Winter. It's all that stuff.
Yeah, we've been playing some Sabotage songs as well. So they're some of them are fairly like the classical renditions we do are kind of complex. So the memorization is hard. It takes a while to memorize them. And so it's a difficult show. That's been challenging. But it's I love being challenged, and like I said, the band is it's a pleasure playing with those guys. The piano players, Jane and Vitaly are just mind-blowingly talented people. Al Petrelli on the guitar. I mean, watching him work, it's crazy. He's such a talented, composer, director, and just, watching him work, it's I'm humbled being in the room with them, honestly, and Johnny, the original, Sabotage bass players, I'm playing with, and Angus is also, he's on my, the West Coast. He's super guitar player, played, with Joe Lynn Turner, and then the other guys, we get to rehearse, we start up usually in Iowa, near Omaha, Council Bluffs. And we're basically in an arena with both bands kind of taking turns, playing on the stage. And so Joel Hoax was out there, who's an amazing player. Oh, I forgot to mention Dino Jalusic, who is one of our singers in TSO. He just joined Whitesnake, so for their final tour. So, wishing him well. I don't know if you've heard him, but super incredibly talented singer, piano player, guitar player. He's multi-instrumentalist. He's probably a pretty good drummer too, I think.
Don't you hate people like that? Just stay in your own fucking lane. Pick one thing. Stop being a show off.
No, I mean, like I said, the group of people there is so talented, man. I'm humbled to be there, honestly,
So how long does it take you guys to get that tight?
We usually rehearse for, around 3 weeks before the tour. It's mainly, like I said, they're just so good at what they do.
Right.
It's just, even when we first come in, like, it's already sounding great from the first day we're there, because these people they're amazing musicians and singers.
Sean, have you ever seen Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
Not live, but on like DVD and videos and stuff. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is amazing.
If you get a chance, you gotta see it live, because the live experience is it's just you can't really get it on video. It's the heat, you feel those flames, and
you feel like you're going to have an aneurysm with some of the strobe lights and the lasers, everything. But it is well worth the ticket. It's really great. So what are you doing with yourself now, Blas? What's your days like?
These days, I'm just kind of hanging with my family, and my kids are getting ready to go back to school. My son just had his tonsils out, so I'm kind of taking care of him.
How old's your son?
He's 15, and he's a very talented musician. He plays bass, he plays guitar, he plays violin, and he's a great piano player. So he's way more talented than I ever was.
Whether he got it out at 15, unlike me at 32 when I had my tonsils taken out.
I wish we got him out when he was younger, because it's been rough on him, honestly. He's having a hard time with it. But we hang out, like we've been going. We just got back from Lake Tahoe, just going hiking and camping and biking, and we did parasailing, me and my boy. So just kind of doing that. We went to Yellowstone earlier, and in the pandemic, and just family time. That's what it's been, because I've only done like a couple of gigs since this whole thing happened, shut us all down. So but I'm looking forward to getting back on the road. Hopefully, we're crossing our fingers that TSO is going out this year. We're planning on it, but keep our fingers crossed.
Now, will you only do the West Coast dates, or you will do the East Coast? You suck.
West.
We're the East Coast.
Jeff Plate is West Coast. Jeff Plate, God, that guy, he's the drummer of West. He put out his own record, All Terrain, which he wrote, and produced. It's his solo record, and incredible, drummer, writer. He's if check out the record All Terrain. It's their new. Where's my head right here? Where did I put that thing? I got the CD, but I'm going to tell you. Here it is. All Terrain Mother's Day. Super great record, man. This guy's so talented. Anyway, check that out. He's the East Coast. He's the original Sabotage guy, and East Coast Trans-Siberian Orchestra drummer.
Nice.
Sean, famous question about musicians.
What's that?
Ask a famous question about musicians.
Yes. So I always end the podcast with my famous question.
All right.
You can pick your ultimate dream band that you play in. And don't say fucking Mark Slaughter or Dana Strum and all that bullshit. I don't want to hear that. You pick your ultimate band. Who would it be that you could be in?
Who, man? Dead or alive?
Doesn't matter.
John Lennon has to be. You know, I mean, I'm probably going to end up just basically playing the Beatles. You know, because Paul McCartney obviously would be the bass player. Guitar player, Jimmy Page, maybe.
Okay.
Piano player, Elton John. Oh, Elton John.
No arguments about anybody there.
Yeah. This is finally a fucking musician gave me a great answer. Every time, I love my band so much. They're the greatest guys in the world. Oh, I couldn't imagine playing with anybody else besides them. Thank God. Now you just need a bass. Who's the bass player?
Paul McCartney, I think. You know, he's such a musical bass player. You know, like his parts are, just so, melodic and,
you're basically just saying you hate Ringo Starr is what you're saying.
No, actually Ringo, if we could share drum duties, he's one of my biggest influences and his parts are, incredible. Like he's very underrated. Like I saw a guy do a little video, it's like a drum clinic is doing it. And he was basically showing like, if what a modern drummer would play.
I saw the same thing, Blas. It's amazing.
Parts. It's just ridiculous, because his parts are just so good for their songs, and you couldn't replace him. It wouldn't be the Beatles.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm arguing with people all the time when people say, Ringo suck.
Well, listen, Paul McCartney even said it best. Ringo Starr wasn't even the best drummer of the Beatles. Let's just be honest. But he's a great drummer.
Yeah. Paul's also, he's one of those guys, gifted at everything he does.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, man, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know your kid is sick. I really appreciate you giving us the time that you did today. Why don't you let everybody know, like your social media handles and things like that so they can check you out online?
I think it's just, Facebook / Blas Elias, Twitter, Blas Elias, Instagram. I think it's Blas Elias Drums. I think that's pretty much all I use. I'm not really a TikToker. Yeah,
no, you know why? Because you're not 12.
My daughter is 12, and she's the TikTok expert.
She's the TikTok, exactly. But you should do like some daddy-daughter videos. That'd be pretty kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
No, Sean, he's not doing that.
No, I know he's not. I was trying to, but.
All right, hey, thanks for having me,
your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll see you guys on tour one of these days.
Cool, man.
All right.
Later.